Have you ever stumbled upon something so extraordinary that it felt like the universe itself was pulling you into a story? Well, this story begins not in a grand ballroom or at a candlelit dinner, but in an antique shop brimming with faded memories. Stacks of books, old lamps, and a weathered wooden trunk is where our journey begins. The trunk, with its metal hinges and brass lock, seemed like it was calling out to be opened. Inside, beneath layers of yellowed paper and trinkets, sat a stack of letters wrapped in a faded ribbon. And at the top of the pile, a love letter that had waited over 100 years to be read. This wasn't just any love letter. Its ink had turned sepia, the handwriting elegant, deliberate, each word carrying emotion through time. It began with a date, March 14th, 1921. The sender was Edward, and the recipient was his beloved, Claire. Edward's poetic words conveyed a deep, eternal love. You could almost feel the weight of what they were to each other. But here's the twist. The letter was never opened. The envelope remained sealed, never reaching Claire, forever trapped in the limbo of undelivered love. Imagine this, your heart pouring into words, your future bound by an envelope, and yet it never arrives. What happened to Edward? Why didn't Claire open it? Did she even know it existed? The intrigue is electrifying, isn't it? Well, a curious historian named Lily thought so too. She purchased the trunk and began investigating the letter's story. Through research at local archives, she discovered that Edward was a young soldier, stationed overseas, and Claire, a pianist, lived in a quiet town. Their love blossomed through letters, but then tragedy struck. During Edward's journey back home, his train derailed in a horrific accident. Though he survived, the letter did not make it. The delicate paper lost in the chaos, presumed destroyed. Years later, the letter was unexpectedly found at the crash site during a cleanup, but heartbreakingly was placed in a storage facility and forgotten for decades. And what about Claire? She believed she had been forgotten. Without any reply or news from Edward, she assumed he had moved on. Over time, Claire grew distant, shielded her heart, and stopped playing the piano. Edward, on the other hand, wrote on, letter after letter, but none reached her. And there they were, two people meant for each other, lost to time, miscommunication, and chance. Why does this resonate? Because love isn't just grand romantic gestures. It's in the small, almost invisible moments. The waiting, the hoping, and sometimes the heartbreaking acknowledgement that life has other plans. But Edward and Claire's story didn't end there. You're probably wondering what happened next. Years after discovering the letter, Lily tracked down Claire's surviving family members. An elderly woman named Margaret, Claire's niece, held the last puzzle piece. Margaret had Edward's final letter in her collection, one that he wrote years after the accident, apologizing for losing her, but affirming his love hadn't wavered. In a beautiful twist, these two pieces of their love story found each other through modern acts of chance and curiosity. There's something irresistible about the unfinished. This story reminds us that love, even when incomplete, lingers through time, leaving imprints on all who find it. Edward's words, though delayed by a century, finally reached someone who cared enough to piece the story back together. So, as you carry on, maybe glance at the unloved corners of an antique shop, or flip through forgotten records in an attic. Who knows? Maybe you too hold the key to a story lost to time, waiting to remind the world how pure and timeless love can truly be.